Another day, another progressive company looks down to find its hand mysteriously glued to a female employee's backside. How could this happen to me? Me. I have to admit, I do find these stories somewhat amusing, just because it proves yet again that those who tend to preach the loudest also tend to have one or two skeletons in the closet, but oh well, details. And this is nowhere near as sexy as the Activision Blizzard debacle, at the very least not yet, as they are of course getting sued by the state of California, whereas Sweden has not yet taken any such action against Paradox. Now what's happened here is, Paradox boss says he regrets inappropriate behavior during company meeting. This, incidentally, is something that happened in 2018. Okay. This has been drudged up from quite far back in the past then, hasn't it? But the whole Paradox thing is turning into quite the soap opera, isn't it? First, of course, the then CEO, Ebba Ljungrud, I believe was her name, is let go over creative differences. Oh, I'm sure. Creative differences indeed. And the old CEO, Frederick Wester, the boss who has conducted the inappropriate behavior, whatever that might mean, then steps back into the role as CEO. Mere days later, a report made by a Swedish union suddenly appears on the internet. You know how that works out, don't you? Like, this is literally the movie script where it's like, yes, we shall send this to our friends in the press. And now it is alleged that there is a culture of abuse and gender-based discrimination at Paradox immediately after letting their female CEO go. Mr. Fisticle indeed. Now, what exactly saw her getting fired, God alone knows. Now, granted, she did reside over some of the greatest failures in Paradox history, including such bangers as Imperator Rome, for example, and the Bloodlines debacle, which left an awful lot of bad blood, both inside of Paradox and in their various, what English word escapes me, their partner companies. So again, what exactly happened there would have to be pure speculation, so let's not get too into that, but there does appear to have been certain non-gender-based reasons, perhaps, for re-evaluating her position at Paradox, let's put it that way. And yet now, Frederick Wester here comes out and says, let's see here, there. In the wake of a recently leaked survey to the press, there have been rumours and discussion about my role in this environment, citing a specific incident in 2018. In the name of transparency and clarity, I would like to shed light on this. Accountability starts from the top. Now, apparently, this has been a thing. I haven't seen it reported on, so internally, I guess, or maybe in the more Swedish publications, entirely possibly. We held a company-wide conference, and during this gathering, a Paradox employee was subject to inappropriate behavior from me personally. This was something I immediately and sincerely apologized for in person the following Monday, in a process reviewed by HR. So this sounds an awful lot like me, like they had a party, a nice big party to celebrate their success, and a little bit too much in the way of alcohol may have been consumed by a certain CEO who decided to make a romantic overture towards a female employee. But this is 2018 Sweden, looking at a woman wrong. Well, it's Sweden, I'll leave it at that. Hell, Norway's not much better in this regard, but yeah, inappropriate behavior can mean a lot of things in this context. They also, when approached for more information by Eurogamer, and to be fair, I think I'd clam up too if I was approached by Eurogamer. This entire article reporting on this is filled with, shall we say, creative quotations, where they take one or two words and go like, this'll create a nice little narrative. What was it here? Those who replied said the studio culture was worse for women. Well, that's a very creative quotation again, because from what I saw, what they actually quoted was that a slightly larger percentage of the people who had reported, and these are the union members themselves as well, mind you, so it's a subsection of the larger employee base, a greater percentage of the women did report harassment, abuse, etc., etc. So saying that it was worse for women is one of those technically true occasions, isn't it? But, of course, that is Eurogamer in a nutshell. A Paradox spokesperson declined to share more out of respect for the privacy of the person involved. Oh my, oh my. What exactly did happen here? Now, I bet you it was probably absolutely nothing, but this is now getting picked up on as a part of a probably internal power struggle to see new forces rise to the top. It would not surprise me at all if Frederick Vester here has some long-standing enemies within the company, maybe those who were quite fond of the way that the previous CEO did things, seeing as she, and this bear in mind a speculation here, but under her leadership there were a fair few little purges carried out. For example, the entire quality assurance team was eat us, delete us. Now, the first response to that is often, Paradox had a quality assurance team. Yes, apparently, and from what I've heard, from, bear you in mind, unconfirmed little whispers and so on, apparently what was going on was that they were doing their job, or at least it's claimed that they were doing their job. They were sending out the bug reports and saying like, okay, this doesn't work, if we release this, it's gonna break the game, and Europa Universalis has... Oh, Jesus Christ. It has been completely and utterly buggered with every single update at this point. It's actually criminally awful. The latest one, again, we're not talking about DLC that breaks the DLC, we're talking about paid downloadable content that breaks the entire game here. And apparently, again, the quality assurance team, they were raising the red flags. This is not ready, this needs patching, the gameplay isn't interesting, we're having all of these issues, this needs more time. And in the case of Imperator Rome, they apparently suggested that the entire thing needed a complete rework, which of course Paradox eventually started doing after the release, mind you, once they saw the outrage being created by the game. And if this is true, then it sounds an awful lot like a bunch of people who actually did their jobs rubbed certain influential individuals the wrong way, and were so let go over aforementioned creative differences. Maybe then that the old guard, the people who presided over the greatest successes and the rise of Paradox, the passionate people who made grand strategy games, back in the day when that was a niche within a niche within a niche, looked at this and decided it is time to do something. And so a little bit of a coup d'etat was carried out against the architect of all things woeful. Again, I'm being somewhat speculative here, just to clarify. And now those agents who were within the ranks, causing a little bit of the bad blood, who were quite convinced that they had the correct vision going ahead for the corporation, have decided to resort to more creative means in an attempt to regain control. Again, pure speculation, but if the hat fits and all that, I certainly wouldn't be overly surprised if the progressive forces within the company, who have gotten more and more power over the course of the, incidentally last 4 years or so, won't take particularly well to a old, white male getting back in control of things. Again, whether or not that'll change anything, for all I know, Frederick here might be just as forward-thinking as the other people. Who knows? I'm just speculating here, because, again, Paradox used to be one of those companies where I would just buy their games. Like, I wouldn't even bother. When they put out a DLC or an expansion pack, etc., I would just buy it. I wouldn't bother reading the reviews. I wouldn't bother looking at it. I wouldn't bother looking at the feature pack. Hell, even if it's something I was entirely uninterested in, I would just buy it because it was a Paradox product. And frankly, they were the only ones making grand strategy games that were worth a damn. Hell, they're still practically the only ones making grand strategy games worth a damn, though we are starting to see some exceptions in that regard, which is nice, but even then, Paradox is still pretty much the undisputed king of that particular field. Yet now, over the course of the last few years, like, Hearts of Iron 4 is a perfect example of this. When I first did a review of that, I was like, this has so much potential. This could be the best Hearts of Iron ever. And only now are we with the logistics system, which sounds so promising, but the resistance system sounds so promising too, and that turned out to be an absolute nightmare, frankly. We are maybe kinda slightly beginning to see the outlines of the game we could have had, like, half a decade ago. It's goddamn sad. Not to mention the state of Europa Universalis 4. Yeah, maybe it's just my own wishful thinking, hoping and praying that this will somehow signal some kind of paradigm shift within Paradox. I hurt myself sometimes. Paradigm shift within Paradox. I need to wrap it up there before I say something truly ridiculous. Anyways, what do you guys think? Does this really start sounding an awful lot like a soap opera? Because to me it is. Could this be a return to greatness? Or maybe it means absolutely nothing. Maybe it'll simply be a continuation of things as usual. Maybe none of this has anything to do with the making of video games whatsoever. It's difficult to know in this day and age, frankly. Anywho, until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.